True confidence is not something you construct. It's something you uncover by removing what was never you. This journey we are about to embark on is not about adding another layer of performance, another set of techniques to manage perception. It is an excavation, a patient, deliberate return to the unwavering foundation that exists beneath the noise of expectation, beneath the exhausting calculus of people-pleasing, beneath the constant draining performance for an audience you never chose. For generations, confidence has been misunderstood. It has been sold to us as a costume to wear, a louder voice, a firmer handshake, a more dominant posture in the boardroom. We have been taught to project it, to fake it until we make it. But this is a fundamental error, a confusion of the symptom for the cause. The Stoics, those ancient philosophers of the inner citadel, understood something far more profound. They saw the human soul not as something weak to be fortified from the outside, but as something inherently strong, obscured by layers of false belief and habituated fear. Marcus Aurelius, writing to himself in his private meditations, did not exhort himself to be more confident. Instead, he reminded himself of his own nature, of his capacity for reason, and of his duty to shed the opinions of the mob. This is our starting point. Confidence is recognition, not construction. What we call dangerously confident in the modern parlance is simply a person who has ceased the daily, subtle betrayal of their own essence. It is the visible result of an internal ceasefire, that invisible leaden weight you carry in your chest, the one that makes simple decisions feel arduous and social interactions feel like performances. It has a composition. It is the accumulated sediment of 1,000 small surrenders. It is the metallic taste of the laugh you forced when nothing was funny, the stiff ache in the neck from the nod you gave when every cell wanted to shake your head in dissent, the hollow echo of the apology you uttered when you had done absolutely nothing wrong. This is the real cost of living for an external audience. It is a compound interest paid on the debt of inauthenticity, and it drains your vitality, your clarity, and your very will. Dangerous confidence, therefore, is not aggression. Aggression is often fear, weaponized and pointed outward. True confidence is gravitational. It is the quiet, magnetic pull exerted by someone who has become internally coherent. It is speaking softly in a noisy room and noticing people instinctively leaning in, not because they must, but because they want to catch the signal of a clear frequency. It is the steadiness of a gaze that doesn't flinch from conflict or flatter with neediness, a gaze that simply sees what is. This quality unnerves the insecure and calms the wise because it is rare. It is the presence of someone who is no longer at war with themselves. This journey, then, is framed not as an addition but as a subtraction. It is the meticulous removal of inherited fears, the ghostly whispers from childhood that say, "Don't rock the boat." It is the extraction of implanted doubts, the societal narratives that equate quiet with weakness and disagreement with rudeness. Most of all, it is the shedding of the exhausting performance that has replaced your natural presence. You are not learning to act a new part. You are learning to stop acting altogether, to simply be the lead character in your own life, off script and unfiltered. We begin this excavation with 7 unshakable rules. Think of these not as tips or hacks, but as architectural principles for your inner world. They are load-bearing walls. This is not about temporary motivation, the thunderclap of inspiration that fades by Tuesday. This is about building internal infrastructure that will hold you steady in any storm, that will remain standing when the winds of criticism, rejection, or failure howl. This is the work of building a citadel within, as the Stoics envisioned, a fortress of mind that cannot be breached by external events. Rule 1. Abandon the performance of certainty. We live in an age that worships at the altar of certainty. We demand it from our leaders, our experts, and ourselves. The cultural crisis of confidence we face is not, at its root, a deficit of genuine self-assurance. It is an epidemic of pretending. It is the widespread performance of having life figured out while quietly suffocating underneath the weight of the facade. You have seen this mask everywhere. The too loud, too long laugh that rings hollow. The aggressively stated opinion that shatters at the first touch of a probing question. The person who cannot tolerate even gentle inquiry because their entire persona is a carefully constructed diorama, not a foundation built on bedrock. Their certainty is brittle because it is a prop. The dangerously confident individual does something that seems radical to this conditioned mindset. They admit uncertainty without sacrificing an ounce of authority. They can say, "I don't know," with a voice that remains level and calm. They can state, "I'm still figuring this out," without it sounding like a confession of inadequacy. They can declare, "I have changed my mind," and offer no defensive, rambling explanation for their prior position. This is confidence matured in the kiln of humility. It is the confidence of a scientist, not a zealot, wedded to the truth, not to being right. Most of us were subtly, or not so subtly, taught that confidence is synonymous with infallibility. To show doubt was to show weakness. To reveal your thought process was to reveal the messy scaffolding behind the finished building, and that was deemed unprofessional, unimpressive. So we constructed elaborate intellectual facades. We speak in absolutes where nuance exists. We hide our confusion behind a wall of jargon. We fake fluency on topics we barely understand, living in terror of the follow-up question. The cognitive and emotional cost of this charade is astronomical. When you perform a certainty you do not feel, you enact a profound self-betrayal. You create a psychological split. There is the you that is speaking the confident words, and there is the you that is watching this performance from the back of your own mind, whispering, "This is a lie." There is the you that projects calm and the you that is screaming underneath. This fragmentation is utterly exhausting. It consumes massive psychic resources that should be directed toward genuine engagement, creativity, and problem-solving. You leave simple conversations feeling depleted because you have been managing impressions, not exchanging ideas. The psychologist Fritz Perls, founder of Gestalt therapy, described the difference between aboutism and contact. Aboutism is talking about things, performing, explaining. Contact is the raw, direct experience of the present moment. When you live in performance mode, you are trapped in aboutism, constantly narrating and managing your image rather than experiencing reality directly. You are in your head, not in the room. Modern research, notably the work of Dr. Brené Brown on vulnerability, has revealed a powerful counterintuitive truth. People trust expressed vulnerability more than they trust polished perfection. We must clarify, this is not the curated strategic vulnerability of sharing a past struggle once it's neatly resolved. This is the real-time vulnerability of being willing to exist as a work in progress, of admitting a present gap in knowledge. Think of the people you respect most deeply, not the distant figures you admire, but the ones you truly trust. Chances are they have shown you their uncertainties. They've admitted their mistakes to you. They've let you see their thinking evolve. And in doing so, they didn't lose your respect. They cemented it. Why? Because authenticity forges connection in a way that a flawless facade never can. When someone says, "I don't know," it gives you permission to not know as well. It creates a space of shared humanity. This is the essence of intellectual humility, and it is a cornerstone of dangerous confidence. It is the capacity to hold a strong position, to commit fully to a course of action, while simultaneously holding open the possibility that you might be wrong. It is the ability to separate your ego from your ideas. The physicist Richard Feynman captured this brilliantly. I would rather have questions that can't be answered than answers that can't be questioned. This is the mindset of the confident inquirer, curious, open, and intellectually undefended. His confidence lay in his method, his rigor, and his honesty, not in the immutable rightness of his current conclusion. Consider the sheer exhaustion of the alternative, the need to be certain about everything, to never admit confusion, to have a snap answer for every question, to defend every past statement as if your current identity depends upon it. This rigidity is not strength. It is fragility in disguise. Real confidence is flexible. It is bamboo, not oak. It bends in the storm without breaking. It can absorb new information, integrate it, and adjust its stance without collapsing into a crisis of self. It allows for error without spiraling into catastrophizing. So how do you practice this shift? Begin with language. When asked a question you cannot answer, replace the bluff or the deflection with a simple, "I don't have enough information on that yet. Let me look into it and get back to you." Notice the internal reaction and then notice the external one. Most people will respect this honesty far more than a rushed, insubstantial answer delivered with false bravado. When you are in a state of genuine uncertainty, instead of picking a side prematurely just to appear decisive, try saying, "I'm weighing a few different factors here. I need a little time to process." This demonstrates thoughtfulness, not indecision. When you make a mistake, a factual error, a poor judgment call, the most powerful thing you can say is, "I got that wrong. Here's what I've learned and what I'm doing differently now." This shows accountability and a growth orientation. When someone presents a compelling counterargument, instead of the immediate defensive retort, try, "That's a perspective I hadn't fully considered. Thank you. Let me sit with that." This displays a secure openness. At first, your ego will scream in protest. It will tell you that admissions equal weakness, that uncertainty is incompetence, and that changing your mind is failure. You must recognize this voice for what it is, the echo of old conditioning. It is the internalized judgment of educational systems that rewarded quick answers over deep understanding, of parents who may have seen questioning as defiance, of peer groups that mocked hesitation. But the people worth having in your orbit, the collaborators, the true friends, the worthy partners, will respond to your honest uncertainty not with contempt, but with engagement. They will lean in. They will appreciate the clarity. They will trust the person who is real more than the persona that is perfect. When you finally stop performing certainty, a tangible energy is released. The vast cognitive resources you were using to maintain the facade are suddenly repatriated. That energy floods back into your system. You become more present in conversations. Your creativity has room to breathe. Your capacity for genuine engagement expands. And in a beautiful paradox, you become more trustworthy. People can sense at a visceral level the difference between someone who is confident and someone who is desperate not to appear uncertain. The first feels solid, grounded. The second feels hollow like a drum, loud but empty. This single shift begins to transform your entire relationship with the world. You stop avoiding conversations where you might not have all the answers. You lose the fear of being found out. You become someone who can learn in public, who can grow visibly, and who treats the unknown not as a threat to be vanquished, but as a frontier to be explored. Rule 2. Master the language of boundaries. If confidence is the citadel, then boundaries are its walls. Not walls of hostility meant to keep everyone out, but walls of definition that clarify where you end and the rest of the world begins. Confidence quite literally lives or dies at this personal border. And for most people, this border is not a clear, well-patrolled line. It is a porous, shifting swamp. You say yes with your mouth while your entire body and spirit scream no. You accept treatment, demands, and energy that you find unacceptable, all while a quiet resentment builds like steam in a sealed kettle. You give time you do not have to causes you do not believe in for people you do not respect. Every single time you allow a boundary violation, you send a devastating message to your own nervous system. You are not safe, even from yourself. Your needs are negotiable. Your peace is a secondary concern. The dangerously confident have done the essential work of clarifying their boundaries. Again, these are not walls of anger or ramparts of isolation. They are clear, calm, and consistent limits, communicated not with drama, but with simple fact. They protect your two most precious, non-renewable resources, your time and your energy. The therapist and author Nedra Glover Tawwab explains that boundary issues are rarely, at their core, about other people. They are primarily about your relationship with yourself. When you consistently fail to honor your own limits, you are teaching everyone around you, through action, not word, that those limits are optional. You are the one who first breaches your own walls. Let us reframe the purpose of a boundary. It is not mean. It is not selfish. It is not evidence that you are closed off or unloving. A boundary is structural integrity. Consider this metaphor. A house with no walls is not an open concept home. It is a ruin. You cannot rest there. You cannot feel safe there. You cannot store your cherished possessions there. You cannot fully exist there. It is exposed to every wind, every intruder, every storm. Boundaries create the necessary container, the defined space, in which your life can actually be lived, your love can actually be given, and your work can actually be done. They create the conditions for presence. The great struggle with boundaries stems from a fundamental confusion. We mistake a boundary for an act of rejection. We believe that saying no to a request is saying, "I don't care about you." But this is a tragic error. What you are actually saying is, "I care about myself enough not to betray my own limits. I respect this relationship enough to be honest about my capacity." A relationship that requires you to dissolve yourself is not intimacy. It is enmeshment, a parasitic entanglement where two identities blur into one dysfunctional mass. Real connection requires two whole, defined individuals choosing to meet, not two partial people clinging to each other for completion. What does boundary mastery look like in practice? It is behavioral clarity. You do not feel obligated to respond immediately to every digital ping. You grant yourself the right to respond within a time frame that suits your focus. You do not attend every social event to which you are invited. You assess your genuine social energy and choose accordingly. You do not offer long, apologetic justifications for your unavailability. A simple "that doesn't work for me" or "I'm not available for that" is a complete communication. You do not absorb and internalize the emotional weather of everyone around you. You learn to be compassionate without becoming a sponge for others' negativity. You refuse to make yourself smaller, quieter, or less vibrant to soothe someone else's insecurity. The language is simple, but the initial practice feels profoundly uncomfortable. You will likely feel guilt, a deep-seated sense of being selfish or mean. It is critical to understand. These feelings are not evidence that you are doing something wrong. They are the painful firing of old neurological pathways. They are the proof that you are breaking a deep ingrained pattern. You were likely conditioned from childhood that your worth was tied to your usefulness, that being good meant being endlessly available, and that love meant having no limits. These teachings were, however well-intentioned, a form of spiritual theft. They were false. Start practicing this new language in low-stakes environments instead of the rambling, "I'm so sorry, I'm just completely swamped and I wish I could." but maybe next time. Try, I won't be able to help with that this time. Instead of the non-committal, maybe, let me see if I can shuffle things. Practice the clean, no, that doesn't work for me. Instead of silently tolerating a behavior that bothers you until you explode in disproportionate anger later, state it early and calmly. I need you to stop specific behavior. It doesn't work for me. Then observe what happens. This is where you gain invaluable data about your world. Some people will receive your clear boundary with immediate respect. They might even express appreciation for the clarity. These people are your allies. They value you, not just what you can do for them. Others will push back. They will guilt trip you, but you always helped before. They will question you. Why not? What else could you possibly have to do? They may even call you selfish or accuse you of changing. This reaction is not a sign you have erred. It is pure information. It reveals that this person valued your function in their life, not your fellowship. A person who genuinely cares for you can handle your no. A person who only valued your utility cannot. Dangerous confidence is the ability to see this difference clearly and to let the second group be upset without making their upset your emergency. Your peace is not a democracy. Your energy is not a public utility. Your time is your one truly non-renewable resource, and you are its sole rightful owner. Rule 3. Cultivate emotional non-reactivity. Society often measures confidence by visible action, what you say, what you do, how you step forward. But the deepest, most unassailable form of confidence is measured invisibly by what you don't do, what you don't react to, what you don't internalize, what you don't feel compelled to immediately respond to. The dangerously confident have cultivated a rare and powerful inner discipline, emotional non-reactivity. This is the ability to witness provocation, absorb criticism, stand in chaos, or face direct tension without being emotionally hijacked by it. Your inner state remains your own. This must be distinguished from two imposters, suppression and detachment. Suppression is the forced bottling of genuine emotion, which always leaks out later as resentment, passive aggression, or somatic illness. Detachment is a cold, disconnected withdrawal from life, a refusal to feel which is itself a form of fear. Non-reactivity is neither. It is sovereignty. It is the conscious choice to feel the emotion fully, to allow the wave of anger, hurt, or anxiety to rise, but to choose not to be swept away by its current. You feel the heat, but you do not let it control your hands or your tongue. The Stoics called this apatheia, not apathy, but freedom from being controlled by pathological passions. The Buddhist tradition calls it equanimity, a balanced mind that is not tossed about by the 8 worldly winds: pleasure and pain, praise and blame, gain and loss, fame and disrepute. Modern psychology calls it emotional regulation, the prefrontal cortex skillfully managing the amygdala's alarm signals. Most people live in a state of chronic reactivity. Their emotional state is a puppet, and the world holds all the strings. Someone criticizes them, and they immediately launch into a defensive monologue. Someone challenges them, and they enter fight mode. Someone withdraws affection, and they frantically chase. Someone attacks, and they collapse. Their inner peace is contingent, a hostage to external events. The dangerously confident have severed those external strings. They have internalized the profound insight of psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor Viktor Frankl. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. That space, that sacred pause, is the very birthplace of confidence. When someone provokes you and you do not react, you are demonstrating a profound form of mastery. Not mastery over them, but mastery over yourself. You are showing that their emotional state does not have the power to dictate yours. Their chaos does not have permission to penetrate your calm. This changes the entire dynamic of any interaction. Consider the people who unsettle you the most. They are almost certainly highly reactive. You walk on eggshells because you never know which version of them you will get, the sunny one or the stormy one. Their mood is dependent on the traffic, the weather, the tone of an email, the look from a stranger. Now consider the people who ground you, in whose presence you feel calm and safe. They are consistent, steady. They don't swing wildly based on external circumstances. You trust them because their emotional foundation is internally regulated. You can become this person for yourself and others. Non-reactivity is not a mystical personality trait bestowed at birth. It is a practice, a muscle built through thousands of repetitions of choosing not to be moved by things that used to throw you off balance. Contemporary neuroscience, particularly the work of Dr. Lisa Feldman Barrett on the theory of constructed emotion, supports this. Emotions are not automatic, hardwired responses that happen to us. They are predictions our brain makes based on past experience and current sensory input. This is revolutionary. It means you can retrain your brain's predictive patterns. You can teach your nervous system new, more adaptive responses. Every time you pause and take a breath instead of snapping back, you are literally rewiring your brain. Every time you feel the surge of defensive anger and choose to say, "I'll consider that," you are forging a new neural pathway. Every time you remain calm when someone is trying to provoke you, you are building emotional sovereignty. This is how you move from being a puppet of circumstance to being the author of your experience. So, what does the practice look like? Begin by lengthening the space between the trigger and your reaction. When criticized, your old pattern might be immediate defense. The new practice is feel the bodily sensation, the tight chest, the hot face. Take one conscious breath and say, "Thank you for that feedback. I'll take some time to consider it." This does not mean you automatically accept unjust criticism. It means you refuse to be controlled by it in the moment. You move the processing to a time when you are calm and can discern its value. When someone is clearly trying to provoke you through sarcasm, personal digs, or aggressive questioning, recognize the tactic for what it is, an attempt to transfer their own emotional dysregulation onto you. See it as a hot potato they are trying to hand you. You do not have to take it. Your calm, non-reactive presence becomes profoundly destabilizing to their chaos. They are seeking the fuel of your reaction. When you don't provide it, their engine sputters and stalls. When plans fall apart, practice moving immediately from panic to problem solving. Panic is your nervous system interpreting the event as a life-threatening catastrophe. Problem solving is your prefrontal cortex engaging rationally with a puzzle. The shift is initiated with a question. Okay, this happened. What's the very next smallest step I can take to move forward? This keeps you in agency, not victimhood. Ultimately, this practice makes you psychologically unpredictable in the most powerful way. People can no longer manipulate you through emotion. They cannot bait you into reactions that diminish your power. Your calm becomes an unshakable core, not because you are unfeeling, but because you have learned to let feelings move through you like weather without letting them decide your course. You become the still point in the turning world, and that is the most dangerous form of confidence there is. Rule 4. Reclaim your attention from the validation market. You possess a finite daily budget of cognitive and attentional resources. Every morning you wake with this precious currency. Where and how you choose to spend it determines more than any other factor the quality of your life and the depth of your confidence. Right now, for most people, this budget is hemorrhaging. It is being spent not on creation, connection, or deep work, but on auditing. You are spending it checking how your post performed, decoding the subtext of a brief comment, mentally replaying a conversation for the 10th time, imagining what a group of people might think of a decision you made, monitoring and curating your digital image, comparing your chapter 1 to someone else's chapter 20, and constantly compulsively seeking tiny hits of external approval. This is not living. This is being a full-time accountant for a persona. The dangerously confident have made a decisive withdrawal from this external validation market. They have stopped trading their sovereign presence, their attention, their moment-to-moment awareness for the cheap coin of likes, nods, and approving glances. They have stopped checking the scoreboard of other people's opinions. The psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, in his seminal work on flow states, identified a crucial precondition for that peak experience of engagement: the loss of self-consciousness. You cannot be in flow, deeply immersed in a challenging, rewarding activity, and simultaneously be monitoring how you look doing it. Confidence exists in this same territory. When your attention is externalized, fractured between the task at hand and the imagined audience watching you, you are fragmented. Part of you is trying to write the report. Another part is imagining your boss's reaction to the report. Another part is worrying about a colleague's potential criticism. This fragmentation is why social media and performative workplaces are so utterly exhausting. You are not just living or working. You are curating, documenting, performing, and auditing in real time. The result is a life that perpetually feels like a dress rehearsal for a show that never begins. The transformation begins with a simple but radical shift in the questions you ask yourself. Instead of the externalized, "What will they think?" turn inward and ask, "What do I actually want to create or experience here?" Instead of the panicked, "How am I being perceived?" ask the grounding, "Am I being authentic in this moment?" Instead of the addictive, "Did this get enough likes?" ask the substantive, "Did creating this feel true and meaningful to me?" This reorientation is like turning a telescope around. You stop looking outward for a reflection of your worth and start looking inward at the source of your own values and intentions. When your attention returns to center, your energy returns. Your presence, that full, undivided engagement with the now, returns. And with it, your natural confidence returns. Because confidence is not a mask you project. It is a state you experience when you are fully aligned and present. Begin this reclamation project with concrete practices. First, cultivate awareness without judgment. Simply notice when you are engaging in validation-seeking behavior. I'm scrolling through comments looking for positive ones. I'm altering my statement because I think it will sound better to them. Just noticing the pattern begins to dissolve its automatic power. Second, establish clear validation-free zones. Designate certain hours of the day or certain activities, like your morning routine, a creative project, a workout, where you explicitly do not check for external feedback. The activity is its own reward. Third, practice non-broadcasting. Do something meaningful, enjoyable, or difficult, and tell no one about it. Let the experience be complete in itself without the need for a social media testimonial. This rebuilds your internal reward system. Fourth, institute a delay. If you do post something or send an important email, do not check the responses for a predetermined period, an hour a day. Break the addictive, immediate feedback loop that keeps you psychologically externalized. This work is uncomfortable because we have been culturally conditioned to use external validation as our primary compass. But that very conditioning is the cage. Real confidence is the shift to internal validation. It is the hard-earned ability to know without a shred of external proof that you are on a path aligned with your values. It is the quiet certainty that your choice was right for you. even in the face of disagreement. It is the deep-seated knowledge of your own worth, which doesn't require likes, promotions, or accolades to feel real. The moment you reclaim your attention from the frantic, fickle validation market, you reclaim authorship of your life. You stop living in reaction to a never-ending feedback loop and start living from your own center. And that center, grounded, self-validated, and present, is the epicenter of dangerous confidence. Rule 5. Understand. Confidence is built through micro-decisions. We are often seduced by the narrative of the big break, the single momentous event that will catapult us into a state of permanent confidence. We wait for the promotion, the published book, the transformative relationship, the public victory. We believe confidence will arrive like a reward when our external circumstances finally align. This is a profound misunderstanding. Confidence is not a destination you reach when conditions are perfect. It is a muscle, a quality of character that is forged in the daily, unglamorous furnace of tiny choices. Every single day, you are faced with a series of micro-decisions. These are seemingly insignificant forks in the road. Do I hit the snooze button or get up and meditate? Do I speak up with a contrary opinion in this meeting or stay silent? Do I follow through on the promise I made to myself to go for a run? Or do I negotiate an excuse? Do I enforce the boundary I set, or do I let it slide just this once? Each of these choices is a vote for the identity of the person you are committed to becoming, or a vote for the comfort-oriented, avoidance-based person you have been. Confidence is the cumulative tally of these votes. Behavioral science, particularly the work of researchers like B.J. Fogg on tiny habits, reveals a powerful truth. Small, sustainable behaviors are far more effective at creating identity-level change than sporadic, heroic efforts. The reason is consistency. You cannot maintain a state of white-knuckled willpower indefinitely, but you can almost always manage a tiny habit. Flossing one tooth, writing one sentence, doing one push-up. The power is not in the microscopic action itself, but in the symbolic victory and the neural rewiring of self-concept. I am someone who keeps their promises, even small ones. Think of confidence as a form of self-trust. It is the trust that develops between your present self and your future self. Every time you do what you said you would do, no matter how small, you make a deposit in the bank of self-trust. I said I'd work for 25 minutes, and I did. Every time you betray that commitment, you make a withdrawal. I said I wouldn't check my phone during dinner, and I did. These transactions are invisible to the outside world. No one sees you choose the apple over the candy bar at 3 p.m. No one knows you resisted the urge to send that angry text. But you know, and your nervous system knows. Each micro-betrayal registers as a subtle, I cannot rely on myself. Each micro-integrity registers as, I am reliable. The dangerously confident are built on this foundation of micro-integrity. They understand that the grand, heroic act of courage is almost always preceded by 10,000 tiny acts of discipline that nobody witnessed. They make small, manageable promises to themselves, and they keep them, not for performance, not for an audience, but for the sacred contract of self-respect. To build this, you must lower the threshold for success. Do not commit to writing a novel. Commit to writing for 10 minutes today. Do not promise to transform your diet. Promise to eat a vegetable with one meal. Make the promise so small that not doing it feels almost silly. Then, track completion, not perfection. The only question at the end of the day is, did I do the tiny thing I said I would? It doesn't need to be done well, beautifully, or impressively. It just needs to be done. Then consciously acknowledge the win. I said I'd make the bed and I did. That's integrity. This positive reinforcement wires the new identity. Over time, a quiet metamorphosis occurs. You stop doubting whether you will show up for yourself. You develop a deep, unspoken certainty, not because your life has become easy or free of obstacles, but because you have proven to yourself, through 1,000 tiny trials, that you are a person who can be relied upon by you. This is the bedrock of confidence. It is not the flashy confidence of someone who never fails, but the steady confidence of someone who knows they will get back up, learn, and keep going, because they have done it in small ways 1,000 times before. People sense this quality. They intuit that you are not someone who just talks about things. You are someone who does things consistently, even when no one is watching. That consistency becomes your signature, and when the big moment finally arrives, the high-stakes presentation, the difficult conversation, the leap of faith, you don't have to search for confidence. You simply draw upon the deep reservoir of trust you've built with yourself through all those invisible, uncelebrated micro-decisions. Rule 6. Stop defending your reality. One of the most pervasive and exhausting drains on confidence is the compulsive need to defend your reality, your choices, your feelings, your boundaries, your perspective, your very experience of events. When someone questions or challenges you, the instinct is to immediately mount a defense. You marshal your arguments, gather your evidence, and expend significant energy trying to make the other person see the world through your eyes, to validate your position. This behavior, while feeling protective, is actually a form of profound insecurity. It is a silent plea. Please agree with me so that I can feel my experience is valid. The dangerously confident have liberated themselves from this exhausting loop, not because they don't care about others' perspectives, but because they have internalized a fundamental truth. Your reality does not require a consensus. Your subjective experience of an event, your reasoned choice, your emotional response, these are yours. They are valid because you experienced them. You do not need a committee vote to grant them legitimacy. The philosopher Ludwig Wittgenstein explored how language shapes our reality. When you constantly defend your position, you are, in a linguistic sense, negotiating for its very existence. You are implicitly suggesting that your truth is contingent upon another's acceptance. Confident people state their reality and then let it stand. They don't need everyone to understand their reasons. They don't need universal buy-in. They know that their own experience is the ultimate authority on their inner world. This is not the same as being rigid, dogmatic, or unteachable. It is the stance of being self-authored. You can remain open to new information and other perspectives without requiring that those perspectives invalidate your own in order for you to feel secure. Practice this shift in your communication. When someone disagrees with a choice you've made, instead of launching into a detailed justification, try, "I understand you see it differently. This is the decision I've made." When someone questions a boundary you've set, instead of offering a list of reasons to justify it, simply say, "This is what I need for my well-being." When someone invalidates your feelings, you shouldn't feel that way. Instead of arguing the righteousness of your emotion, say, "I hear that you wouldn't feel the same. My experience was different." Notice the pattern. You are doing two things. First, acknowledging their perspective, which disarms conflict. And second, calmly restating your own position without attachment to their agreement. You are not absorbing their judgment, nor are you fighting against it. You are letting it pass by while you remain standing firmly in your own truth. Initially, this will feel vulnerable. You are not hiding behind the armor of explanation. You are exposed, simply stating, "This is me," and allowing others the freedom to disagree. But something powerful happens over time. You discover that your reality does not crumble when it is challenged. Your sense of self does not fragment when someone misunderstands you. Your chosen path does not disappear because others cannot see its value. It remains. This repeated experience builds a profound, unshakable confidence. The confidence of someone who knows that their inner world is sovereign and does not require external ratification. Paradoxically, when you stop the desperate energy of defense, people often become more open to understanding you. Defense creates resistance. It triggers a similar defensive posture in the other. When you simply state your truth with calm assurance, there is nothing for them to push against. Your reality becomes like water. It doesn't argue with the rock. It simply flows around it, persistent and undeniable. This is dangerous confidence. The confidence of someone who no longer needs permission to experience what they experience, to know what they know, or to proceed as they are. Rule 7. Embrace strategic invisibility. Modern confidence culture promotes a pervasive lie that to be confident, you must be constantly visible. You must always speak up, take up space, assert your presence, and make sure you are seen and heard. This constant performance is not confidence. It is often anxiety masquerading as extroversion. The dangerously confident understand a more nuanced truth. True power includes the disciplined use of strategic invisibility. This is the ability to consciously choose when to step into the spotlight and when to remain a perceptive observer, when your voice will add value and when your silence holds more wisdom. Most people speak to fill uncomfortable silences, to prove their worth in a group, or to avoid the anxiety of being overlooked. Their speech is motivated by nervous energy, not by intentional contribution. The confident person, however, is comfortable in the silence. They can be in a room without performing. They can listen through an entire meeting without feeling compelled to prove their intelligence by speaking. They can let conversations unfold without inserting themselves at every juncture. This restraint creates a different kind of power. When you are not constantly visible, your presence becomes more notable. When you do not speak unless you have something substantive to add, your words carry significantly more weight. People learn to lean in when you begin to talk. The psychologist Carl Rogers spoke of unconditional positive regard in therapy, the ability to offer complete acceptance. Confident people extend aversion